Have you ever dreamed that you can start as a South African nation in EU4 and be able to have half of the entire continent celebrate Hanukkah? Well, today, my friends, we are going to make that dream a reality.
Okay.
Good morning, fellow map painting enjoyers, and happy Hanukkah! Since today is the start of Hanukkah this year, I thought it would be a cool idea to dedicate an EU4 video covering this topic. And to do that, we're going to be looking at the Hanukkah Mutapa achievement that apparently only 0.1% of you people have actually got. Now, this isn't necessarily the most difficult achievement ever to get, so I'm assuming the reason why so few people have it is because it is relatively new and not many people know about it yet, or have had the chance to attempt yet. And not because I am a much superior EU4 player, yes, not at all. Anywho, all joking aside, even though this achievement isn't particularly hard, it is still somewhat challenging and there are a few things you need to keep track of when attempting it. It requires you to start off in 1444 as Mutapa down in Africa, convert to Judaism, and finally celebrate a festival. If you don't know, festivals are a faith mechanic that I believe is unique to Judaism, but I could be wrong about that. We will see how it works later on in the video, it's not very complicated. Alright, sounds simple enough, right? Except, how the hell can you convert to Judaism down here? Well, as you may or may not know, at the start date of the game there are only 2 Jewish provinces in the entire world, and you can find both of them here, in Ethiopia. So, naturally, our only option is to conquer our way up here and to get these 2 provinces. The tricky part is that we need to hurry to get here because we don't want Ethiopia or anyone else that might take these 2 provinces to convert them to some other religion. If that happens, there will literally be no more Jewish provinces left in the game for us to get, which I'm sure Kanye West would be very pleased about. Fortunately for us, Ethiopia starts with some rebels, and while the rebels themselves aren't very noteworthy, Ethiopia also has a mission which they can do as soon as they get rid of these rebels. This mission is very important for us because it triggers an event for them called the Kingdom Semien. Semien? Yes. Ethiopia will have 2 options here, one of them being bad for us, while the other one extremely good. Basically, if they pick the first option, they will release and give independence to Semien, which is not what we want. Bad. The second option, on the other hand, will give both Jewish provinces the modifier Accepted Society for 25 years, which gives them a minus 100% local missionary strength. This pretty much guarantees that no one will be able to convert them to another religion for at least 25 years. Whether or not they get conquered by someone else. This is our window of opportunity. We must reach these provinces before 1469 or 1470, depending on when Ethiopia completes that first mission, which is usually very, very fast. But hold on a second, King, I hear you say. How can we make sure that Ethiopia will pick the second option? Do we just restart the game until they do? How do we even know what they picked, since at the beginning of the game Ethiopia lies in terra incognita for us? Well, my friends, it turns out that we don't have to worry about that at all. At the very least, in the current version of the game, which is 1.34.5, if Ethiopia is played by the AI, they will 100% always pick the second option. How do I know? Well, I actually checked the code in the game files, and as you can see here on screen, the AI chance factor here is equal to 0 for the first option, while on the other hand, the second option has a factor of 100. So we're all set then. We just need to worry about getting to those provinces in 25 years. So let's take care of that now. I know probably most of you know this already, but before we get into the actual gameplay, I just want to remind you that as Mutapa, we start with a tribal government. This means that we cannot actually change our state religion until we reform our government. So even after we achieve our first goal of conquering these 2 Jewish provinces, we will still have to wait until that eventually happens. Alright, with that out of the way, it's time to start. And our first move, of course, is to check our estates and give out privileges. I know a lot of people are maybe scared or just don't know how to properly use their estates, but I highly encourage you to learn how to do so. They are simply a tool that you can use which can give you use some very nice modifiers if you can just manage them a bit. Teaching you how to properly use the estates is outside the scope of this video, but if you want a guide and an in-depth look at them, I would highly recommend Ludi's video on this topic. You can find the link to it in the description below, as well as the card in the top right corner of the screen. He is a very entertaining and knowledgeable fellow EU4 and Paradox Games YouTuber, plus he's Romanian just like me, so, you know, we gotta stick together out here. Anywho, as you can see, we give out the +1 mana point for each estate. Mutapa also has 2 special clergy privileges, the Embrace Singular Cult and Flexible Cult. We will not bother with them right now, however we will have to get the Singular Cult at some point in the future to complete one of our missions. For our nobility, we also grant the increased levies, since manpower can be a major issue for our fast expansion plan. We give them supremacy over the tribal kingdom as well, just to increase the equilibrium of our other 2 estates. For our merchants, we give out patronage of the arts, because the extra prestige will help with a small morale boost to our armies. Normally, we would also get the cheaper advisor privilege from each estate as well. However, in this case, we will wait before doing that, because each one of those privileges also give us a +10% stability cost modifier, and I know for a fact that we will lose a bunch of stability very soon thanks to an event. After that, we call a diet to gain a bit more loyalty and just go for the most convenient mission for us. Next up, we start improving relations with our vassal, and we also get an ally, just for good measure. We should be able to handle everything on our own, but having an ally can't hurt. Then, most importantly, we start building a spy network on Moravi. We will be doing this a lot throughout this campaign, because remember, we have to expand as quickly as possible. We will actually be getting some free claims on all of the regions around us very soon. However, having spy networks is still very good, since it increases our siege ability in those countries. With that in mind, we start preparing for our first war by recruiting the free company early, since they take a while to regain their morale. We also change our national focus to military, and we get a military advisor, which increases our total manpower, as well as an admin advisor for cheaper stability. Remember, we will lose some very soon. For that reason, we also increased our stability to +1 now, so we can take the religious sacrifices national decision, which makes our stability even cheaper still. I actually made a mistake here, because I completely forgot to pick our fetishist cult. Don't make the same mistake as me, because the Mwari, however you pronounce that, cult will give you an extra 2.5% discipline, which will help enormously in the upcoming wars. We start building a spy network on Makua as well. We want to be able to declare the next war as soon as we're done with the first. The regression of Zimbabwe happens. This is what I was talking about, us losing stability. This is a very nasty event, and it basically renders our capital useless until we can fix it later on through our mission tree by having built a temple and the marketplace there, as well as deving it up to 20 development. Then we wait for some more admin points until we can afford to increase our stability again, which lets us complete our first mission. This mission is kind of insane, and one of the main reasons why Mutapa is very powerful in this patch. Look at what it says. If we build any kind of building besides forts, we will gain 1 development in that province. This effect applies throughout our whole country, even after we expand. That's nuts. Obviously, we won't be able to take advantage of that just yet, since we start with Tech 2 in everything, and we don't have access to any buildings yet. But we will. This mission also gives us claims on all of these regions, which means our conquest can begin. This is a pretty standard war, nothing too crazy happens. During the war, we also start preparing in advance a spy network on Tumbuka. This is also when I remembered that we can now get the cheaper advisor privileges from our estates, as we don't need to worry about raising our stability anymore for now. Just as a piece of advice that's valid in any war, if you have any mercenaries hired, try as much as possible to have them siege down forts and lead into battles, because they use their own separate pool of manpower, which will come in very handy for us, since we don't start with a whole lot of it and we will be fighting war after war. Soon enough, we end up fully annexing Moravi and its vassal. This gives us access to our next mission, which will give us a boost to our armies for a few years. That is very welcomed, because we will need to fight Kilwa very soon. Kilwa starts off with military tech 3, as they already already have feudalism embraced, and that means that they will be a lot harder to fight compared to our small neighbors here. This mission also gives us a conquistador. You may think that's a bit odd, but it actually ties in very nicely with our next missions, which lead us towards colonizing the entirety of the South Africa region, without even having access to any exploration or expansion ideas. Or at least it should. Later on, something very unlucky happens to us, which will delay this, but we will cover it when the time comes. In any event, I wanted to point out another mistake I did here. Remember back when I said that in order to restore our capital of Zimbabwe, we need to have 20 development in it? Well, in order to be efficient about that and help out with our fast expansion, I highly recommend you to concentrate development in newly conquered provinces whenever you can and whenever it says that it will buy at least one development at the capital. This will help you reach 20 development much faster, and it also makes it cheaper for you to core the new provinces. I only remember to do this occasionally, and the main reason for that is because I haven't played EU4 that much recently, and back in my day, when I was playing this game non-stop, I don't even think this was a mechanic back then. But yeah, I make a lot of mistakes, so just make your own life easier by not repeating them. Before declaring our next war, I want to get rid of the remaining Moravian army, which have been converted into rebels now, and I want to have my armies ready on the Makuan border when I declare. However, before we can get ready, Kilwa decided to declare war on Makua instead. This is both good and bad. Bad because we need to hurry now to siege their provinces before Kilwa sends in their army, but it's also good because we can use this to do a switcheroo on them. We carefully maneuver our way around the Makuan 8k stack, and they end up attacking our vassal's army, which we weren't able to reinforce in time. However, they weakened them enough for us to be able to win the next battle. Then we make sure to arrive in Lolo just before Kilwa does, so we can control the siege. We also get very lucky with this event, which gives us a cheaper level 2 commandant, which gives us a plus 5% discipline. This will come in very handy for what we're about to do. Thankfully, I also remembered to finally pick our cult, which is even better. Just as the last siege finishes, we recruit an additional mercenary company for our preparation. The nice thing about Mutapa is that you start off with 2 gold mines with the potential of gaining a lot more, and that means that money is not really a concern for us. We can be over our force limit while still having an advisor hired with minimal worries. We also start building a spy network on Kilwa, so as you may have guessed, my plan is to vassalize Makua, which will drag us into a defensive war against Kilwa, so we need to be ready. We'll just wait for them to regain their morale and laugh at Makua's army as they get killed by natives before proceeding with the plan. Another thing you can do here that I didn't is to get the expansionist zealotry clergy privilege, as it will grant you an additional 5% morale boost to your armies when fighting heretics or heathens. You should only do this now, however, because Kilwa is Sunni, and not at the beginning of the game, because the first nations you will be fighting are fetishists just like us, and that will instead give us a minus 5% morale boost. And with that, we make Makua our vassal and the big war starts. This is probably the most difficult this achievement ever gets, which mind you isn't too difficult, but what I'm trying to say is that if you get past this war right here, you're probably good to go until the end. We also call in our ally, but that turned out to be very useless since their AI doesn't let them cross over to us through uncolonized land for some reason. But anyway, we start off in a pretty ideal position as their armies are split up into 2 and we are positioned in such a way that we can take advantage of that. We send off the free company, who also has our vassal's army attached to it, towards the smaller stack, and we attack the bigger stack with our remaining 2 armies. It's pretty important here to try and time both armies so that they arrive in the province at the same time to get our numbers advantage. As I mentioned before, Kilwa has military tech 3 while we only have 2, so having bigger numbers is very important. As you can see, they have higher morale than us, but thanks to our preparations we have an extra 8% discipline over them. As far as I understand, discipline dictates how much damage or how many casualties we can inflict to them in every thick of combat, and thanks to our higher maneuver skill general, we didn't even get the river crossing penalty. But even so, we will still need to have some good dice rolls on our side to be able to win. The first and smaller battle goes on without a hitch, and thanks to some good dice rolls at the end there, we also won the main battle, which is exactly what we wanted to see. We then send our mercenaries to siege the capital of Sofala and wait until that is done before climbing up more along the coast. Again, we think ahead and we already start building a spy network on Mombasa, because this time we will have to fabricate the claims ourselves. The siege is done and we have an opportunity to stack wipe this 3k stack over here, so we will go for that. Kilwa decided it wants to siege down Makua's capital with its entire army, so now it's time for another timed battle, but this time all three of our armies will participate. After carefully timing everything, the Kilwans stand no chance. The war is pretty much won here. The only thing left to do is to begin carpet sieging. I finally remembered to get the expansionist zealotry now, and even though it's a bit too late for this war, it will still come in handy from here on out, since everyone else who will be fighting along the coast is not fetishist. After sieging down everything, we end up fully annexing them and their vassal Sofala. I was a bit shocked that we could take everything in one war, including the little island of Zanzibar, because when I did this in my test run, the cost of taking everything was above 100 war score. I'm not sure why that is, but hey, I'm not complaining. This also means that we have feudalism present in our country now, and as you can see, I remembered to use the concentrate development button here. This is also when I decided it was high time to start integrating our vassal Butua as well. I would recommend you to do this sooner than me, as soon as possible really, since they will provide you with an additional gold mine, as well as it being a requirement for a mission. Now we are faced with a decision. We could either continue on with attacking Mombasa or go for Tumbuka. I decided to go for Tumbuka because I wanted to get everything around the original Mutapa region. In hindsight though, this probably wasn't the best decision ever, since our main goal is to reach those Jewish provinces as fast as possible, and going for Tumbuka doesn't help with that goal. My original plan was actually to fight both wars at the same time, however the gods of EU4 decided that they will not let me do that, and you will soon see why. Luckily, this didn't prove to be fatal for our run, but if you find yourself in a similar situation, I would recommend just going further up the coast. You can finish your unfinished business down here later on in the campaign. But I get to live with my mistakes and you get to laugh at them, so here we are. After getting rid of some rebels, we declare war on Tumbuka and... yep. More rebels spawn on top of our small stack of mercenaries, taking them out, which in turn causes our other stack of mercenaries to be left without any reinforcements, and we lose the battle against Tumbuka. Now I have no other choice than to bring my actual army down from near Mombasa and use that to fight this war, which should have been a very easy war with no complications whatsoever, but the EU4 gods decided that my run was going way too smoothly, so they punished me. No matter. It's just a small setback, and after dealing with Tumbuka's army and these stupid rebels, we promptly siege down their country. During that time, we embrace feudalism and go up to military tech 3, and we also finish integrating Butua, which unlocks another mission for us that gives us access to hire a new mercenary company that actually have some pretty nice bonuses, and they're cheap. Now, we can't actually annex them immediately since they have an ally, which I'm not going to bother getting to, but that's fine, we'll just wait until they completely surrender to us. Meanwhile, we can continue working towards our goal of climbing up the east coast of Africa. After taking care of a couple of rebellions and finish off the remaining army of Tumbuka, we finally declare war on Mombasa. Fighting Mombasa itself is as easy as you would expect, however they are allied with Ajuran as well. This is actually fine for us because we needed to fight them at some point as well, so we can kill two birds with one stone. We start building a spy network on Malindi and also ask them for military access as well as Pate, so we are now able to reach Ajuran. Since we're rolling in money, I decided to hire the Grand Company here as well, because I know we will have to fight Ethiopia soon and they should be relatively strong. Sieging down Ajuran is pretty easy and straightforward, however, we do get struck with a bit of bad luck here as our conquistador dies. This is actually pretty bad for us, and maybe I shouldn't have used him as a general for our armies, because now we won't be able to complete the Uncover the South mission, which required us to discover the Cape province down in South Africa. This would have actually given us immediately a free colony on it and a colonist for 100 years, which is amazing. But no matter, I will not give up on this mission, however, since it is very strong. We will just have to go for exploration ideas as our first idea group, just to get the first tier that gives us the ability to hire more conquistadors. After we do this and uncover South Africa, I will get rid of this idea group and go for something more useful for us though. During this war, we're also finally able to fully annex Tumbuka, so we don't have to worry about them anymore. We also get military tech 4, which is exciting. Our troops get a little bit stronger. Here we run into a bit of a pickle with Ajuran, however. It turns out that we can't actually conquer any of their provinces yet because we can't core them. Why? Well, because we haven't yet discovered this body of water that borders their southernmost province, which is a bit dumb. But we can get around this tiny inconvenience by just annexing little Pate over here before we do any kind of peace deal with Ajuran. I see that Malindi is allied with Pate, so after we position our armies and cancel our military access, I declare war on Malindi to get both of them in one go. This will bring in Adal as well, but that's great because they are also one of our targets. Adal likes to be a bit annoying and tries to land naval invasions on you, but by now you should have a big enough army to be able to keep them at bay. We finally get our first government reform and we choose to go for the extra manpower. After dealing with Malindi and Pate and sieging them down, we move our armies up to re-siege Ajuran and make our way towards Adal as well. We annex Pate separately, which in turn will let us be able to annex what we need from Ajuran as well. We will make sure to fully annex Mombasa as well and snake our way up towards the border with our next target, which currently we cannot see thanks to Terra Incognita. I had hoped that we would be bordering Adal and we can just march our armies into the unknown, but it turned out we had one more target to go through to get to them. Since we can't interact with this other target, we will need to wait until we naturally discover these provinces, but thankfully that doesn't take too long. If you own a province that's bordering Terra Incognita, it turns out that our new friend is Ogaden, if I'm pronouncing that right, and we immediately start building a spy network and declare war as soon as we're able. Ogaden also had an ally, but since we're not interested in them, I will not waste time waiting for them to surrender so I could fully annex. Instead, we just take one province very fast. This is enough to give us access to Adal's lands. Soon after, Malindi fully surrenders to us though, which is great for us because we can get a province from Adal through the peace deal with them as well. We don't want to drag on this war any longer since this one province will give us access to our last target, Ethiopia. We just have to wait a little while to discover one of their provinces and be able to interact with them. Once that happens, we immediately start with, say it with me, building a spy network. Just before we declare the war, we get military tech 5, which will help a lot. This is probably a bit overkill, but just to be extra sure, we get burger loans and hire another mercenary group. We could have most likely made do with what we already had, but I just wanted to be extra sure because we were starting to get a lot of rebels in the rest of our country and I didn't want to leave it undefended. We also developed one of our gold provinces to complete 2 missions in a row. I recommend you do this way earlier than I did actually, because as it turns out, this second mission's reward is that it makes you automatically discover a bunch of unknown land, which includes the whole of Ethiopia. This way you won't have to stand idly by and wait to discover provinces to interact with your targets like I did. This also confirms to us that our 2 gold provinces are still indeed Jewish, and you can see that they still have that province modifier active, which is very nice. We also take this opportunity to start improving our relations with the Mamluks, looking for a potential alliance in the future. After dealing with some rebels, we finally declare our last war. Well, at least the last war needed for our achievement. This is a very standard war, and after we siege down enough provinces to get our war score, we snake our way up and finally conquer our Jewish provinces. And with that, the hard part of this achievement is officially over. From now on, it's just a waiting game.
6.5 hours later.
We need to wait patiently to unlock the rest of our government reforms to be able to change our state religion. And just as a quick tip, if you make your crown lands be above 50%, you can actually speed up the rate at which your reform progress advances. Meanwhile, we are pretty much free to do whatever we want. We don't have to just sit here and do nothing while we wait. Feel free to go whichever direction you wish with your campaign. After a while we get our final government reform. I chose to become a monarchy, but feel free to choose whatever you want. And now, it is time to press the button. Congratulations! You now have to wait even more.
Motherfucker.
As you may remember, in order to complete the achievement, we also need to celebrate a festival. How do we do that? Well, if we go to our religion screen over here, we basically have to press this big button in the middle. To be able to do that, however, we will need 200 church power. How do we get that? It's pretty simple. You gain more of it each month depending how high your religious unity is. This means that you will have to convert, and keep converting your provinces to speed this up. Also to get rid of the rebels, but shh. I would even recommend you to go for religious ideas to help you out with this, and try to hire as many inquisitors as possible. You can usually get clergy missions when you summon a diet that will reward you with a cheap one. But there is another catch. You see, there's another requirement to be able to press this button. We first need to select an admin aspect, which will determine what kind of bonuses our celebration will give us. This costs another 100 church power points, so in total we now need 300 points. An optional thing you can do as well, or that I like to do, is to first go for the Jewish community Diplo aspect. This is simply because I find it to be quite powerful. What it does is that if you have a province that you converted to Jewish and it's not an accepted culture, it basically removes all of the debuffs related to the culture. This practically means that you don't ever have to even bother pressing buttons to accept other cultures or to culture convert them, provided you are able to convert those provinces, of course.
2,000 years later.
And finally, it is time to celebrate a festival. Yeah, that's it. That's all it does. Very anticlimactic, I know. But hey, we got our achievement. Thank you guys for watching this far, and if you did come this far, please consider leaving a like or a dislike and maybe even a subscribe. It really helps me out a lot and it tells me that you guys enjoyed the video. You can leave any kind of feedback in the comments and tell me if you guys will attempt this achievement as well, or if you already have it, what did you do differently, what could I have done differently. Like I said previously, I make a lot of mistakes, so I'm certain that there are much better or faster ways of doing this, but hey, it was fun. And I hope you guys had fun as well. Tell me if you wish to see more content like this in the future and what achievement we should go for next. Until next time, see ya.